Hey, good afternoon, everybody. This is a cold start video for the Honda CT90 that is currently on Bring a Trailer. And I have got a co-pilot in this adventure. His name is Reese. Reese is 8, and I told Reese this was going to be on YouTube. So we're going to do our best job to kind of hold a steady camera. Okay, Reese, so just kind of hold that towards the motorcycle, if you can. Yep, just like that. That's perfect. Okay, so we're going to go ignition on. I usually cold start this bike at about half choke, in that range. That's all it takes. So we've got the choke on about halfway. And starts right up. Runs like a Honda. Okay, Reese, good job, man. Thank you. I'll go ahead and I'll see if I can do as good of a job as you did. And while we've got it running, we'll just make it a walk around 360 while we're at it. Excuse the mess in the garage. I tried to kind of make a space so I could walk around the bike without tripping over anything. That was the idea. This bike's all factory paint. It's a Survivor, a true Survivor. All the red that's on it is all original Honda applied paint. This was a one-owner bike the majority of its life. And it's kind of a cool story. I'm going to come off the choke here. It's starting to warm up. It was a father-son pair that bought a pair of 90s, and this was the dad's bike. Of the two, this was the one that got the least amount of usage, and originally it spent its life up in Washington State. I actually have a copy of the original Washington title from 1968 in the original owner's name. I'm happy to, of course, include that with the bike. I think it's a really neat part of the bike's history, just to have. I'm kind of a paperwork hound, and of course that'll accompany the bike. And that's the buddy seat, and the buddy seat is fantastic if you want to take a passenger along with you. Nice thing is it's got snap buttons and straps that kind of come underneath the luggage rack. And this is easily removed. So, for example, if you wanted to just take a passenger, but then have the option to just use the luggage rack without the seat cushion, it's easy off, easy back on, 4 buttons, it reattaches. Really cool design. We've used the heck out of that buddy seat. It's got a lot of miles on it. It's got the optional side mirror. Glasses in really good shape. Original glass. Everything on the bike works electrically. The high beam, the low beam, the brake light, the horn, all that good stuff. This bike also has an original Honda muffler, not to be confused with the inexpensive reproductions that are floating around. This is a OE Honda. I'm not sure if the camera is going to pick it up or not, but it's got the Honda part number and all the original Honda writing on it. Really nice muffler. The reproductions are decent, but they don't fit quite the same and they don't look quite the same. It's an honest attempt, but I really like original Honda parts on my stuff anytime it's an option. I sure like to opt into Honda any chance I get. And to the best of my knowledge, that's the original muffler to the bike. Just a really nice, honest, complete, I'm going to say high end on the rider scale, rider quality, but a bike that really presents itself well, that shows well. Everybody that sees it, parked or at the campground goes, holy moly, what a beautiful Honda. And this paint, if anybody's gone down the road of preserving or restoring a 90, you'll notice that the paint kind of, it changes color slightly, and as the paint ages, it almost turns kind of an orangish hue. And I've seen a lot of bikes repainted and they don't get the red right. You can kind of tell what it's supposed to look like when you see a factory paint bike that hasn't been touched up. And I'll see if I can get a good shot of an area that's never seen sunlight, which is under the seat pan. It's a little bit deeper red, and then the paint that's exposed that has seen the sunlight just has a little bit of kind of an orangish hue to it. I guess that's the best way I can describe it. Original carburetor. One thing that's kind of cool about the 68s is that they've got a high-low gear switch. The earlier 90s, you actually had to change the length of the chain, and you had to move the chain to a different sprocket. It was a manual process, and the toolkit actually included the chain link and all the tools necessary, so you could actually, on a ride, you could change it from low to high via the sprocket change. The 68's a really cool year because in 68 they came up with the high-low switch. So the high-low switch, okay, Reese, thanks for your help, man. I appreciate it. The high-low switch lives under here, and this just gets turned, and you can move it back and forth. I don't know if you can hear it or see it, but that's your high-low. It's a manual switch, which is nice because then you don't have to goof around with the sprocket, the chain. I mean, it's literally on the fly, which is kind of nice. And low gear, by the way, low is really low. It's like, it'd be like the equivalent of a granny gear in a pickup truck. It'd have to be a really steep hill climb, I'm guessing, to actually need to go to low. I usually have the bike in high and it's perfect. So we talked about factory paint. We talked about fading to a little bit of an orange. It's still got the original. I'm kind of a stickler for details. I like details and things that you don't always see on restored bikes. It's original sticker here, original Honda sticker. Talks about how to properly change the low-high switch. So you don't, it says stop the engine, have the transmission in neutral, carefully turn the rear wheel so it engages nicely. You obviously don't want the bike under power if you're going to do a high-low gear switch. So that sticker's still intact. It's missing a little bit of this upper corner here, but I think that just really speaks to a nice low mileage bike that's been well taken care of. These are original Honda, and I tried to show this in the photos. These are original Honda rear foot pegs. They've got the Honda logo on them. So when you're kind of back to my whole concept of having somebody seated on the back, these are great because you can just fold the foot pegs down in the back. And it's a nice secure place for somebody to put their feet. But if you ever want to just use a luggage rack, of course you can just flip these up, or they actually thread in and they can be removed as well. Honda 90s have kind of a neat kickstand. I'm not sure if you've seen the Honda 50 or 70 style kickstands, but this kickstand is really secure. When it comes down, it's a full width kickstand, if you will. So when the bike is on the kickstand, it sits perfectly upright, as opposed to a typical stand which just leans to the left or it leans to the right. So very secure. It's really nice when you put it in a pickup bed or in a flatbed trailer because it's so steady. Always want to put a couple of straps on it, of course, but I always liked that design that Honda had with the kickstand. This is an original seat pan. I guess I'll call that out while I'm here. These are really hard to find in an OE Honda part that hasn't been beat to heck. This one has the original rubber snubbers. It's factory black paint, original hinge. I did replace the seat foam. The seat foam just had started to deteriorate, and when they get old, they start to crumble. So I went ahead and replaced the foam. This is also a reproduction Honda seat cover, but this is a factory original stainless trim ring. So original trim, original seat pan, original hardware, new foam, new vinyl. So it's super comfortable and it looks really nice. It still has the original kind of this rubber protective cover on the end of the levers, both sides. That's the old mud flap, the old little very simple design but super functional mud flap. Just keep the crud off your legs if you end up going through a mud puddle or trying to keep your pants semi clean. Wheels on the bike, I guess I'll call some attention to the wheels. What happens with these wheels is the outer hoop especially, it's very common to see a 90 with heavy pitting, rust pitting on the hoops. And these hoops are absolutely beautiful. And they're not perfect. They're not perfect, but they are, I mean, in the context of a really, really respectable rider, they're gorgeous. And I have polished those up. I hit them with some steel wool. They were really nice when I got the bike. I just wanted to make them pop, but they have not been replated. So those are original Honda hoops, front and rear. Very, very nice. Some slight imperfections. I'll see if I can zoom in here on some of these. You know, little flaws here and there, but just a great shine. All factory, original spokes. They just run really straight and true, just like they should. Here, I want to point one other thing out while I'm standing here. Originally, the anti-theft security device in '68, we'll call it, was the ability to lock the front forks at an angle using this lock right here. And inside of the solenoid, there's a little pin that comes up and it goes down. And what that pin does is it just keeps the front steering from being able to straighten out. So if somebody wanted to steal the bike, they're just going to do a bunch of circles. Either this lock needs to be lubed up and greased and cleaned up really well, or I don't have the key to it. I'm not sure. What I can tell you is that I have the original key to the bike. This guy. This is the original key. And this key does fit in there, but when I try to turn it, it takes a little bit of force, more than I want to force it. So I've never gone down that process of either having the correct key cut or maybe just changing this lock out to match that key. That's something a locksmith could do, but I just wanted to call attention to that. So it's there, it probably works. I do not have a key to lock and unlock it. The wiring harness on this bike is really nice. It's never been cut, it's never been spliced. Sometimes these bikes have a pretty hard life where they have accessory turn signals and different miscellaneous things added to them over the years. This bike, by the original owner, thanks to his ownership, just left the bike 100% stock. And I think they're, in my opinion, they're at their best when they're stock. There's the buddy peg on the passenger side. It still has these kind of, back to the whole originality thing, and little details, stickers and Honda rear foot pegs and stuff. It still has the rubber plug, if you will. I'm probably calling it the wrong thing, but these are still intact. And as far as I know, if you wanted to add like an accessory turn signal kit, back in the day, you could actually mount an accessory turn signal. The bracket, I think, would sit here. This bike's never had anything added to it, but it's kind of neat that these have still, they're hard. They're not as pliable as, they're still rubber, but they're intact. They're hanging on. Usually those vibrate out or fall out, or people take them out and forget to put them back in. Here are the ones on the left side of the bike. Tail light lens is perfect. That's an original lens. It's not a reproduction. It's in really good shape. And this bike is titled, depending on what the next owner's intentions are, you know, it could be titled and registered and plated in your state. Now, Oregon, I can't speak to how other states work and what they require, but in Oregon, a Honda 90, since it originally didn't have turn signals, this is how the bike would have been configured and sold new. In the state of Oregon, if you've got a title, they will plate it just like any other motorcycle, just like any street legal motorcycle. They don't require anything to be added. They issue a license plate, and away you go. That's really important for somebody that does want it to be legal for street use. When you get to campgrounds are a little bit of a gray area. State campgrounds, this has been my experience, state campgrounds, they tend to be a little bit more particular about license plates and making sure that your bike is current on a tag and that the DMV has record of it and so on and so forth. Some of the other campgrounds, they don't really seem to care too much. So with this one here, you've got the option, if you want to plate it and title it and get it 100% road ready and road legal for your state, by all means, I would encourage you to do so. It rides great, tracks really well, and I hope this video was helpful, and thanks everybody for the comments and the questions, and I'll do my best to answer them as any further questions as fast as I can. Have a good one. Thank you.